absolutely crazy to me. Yes, it's mad. Well, moving over to UK news now. I heard and I saw a lot of signs on the roads over the last few days about incoming rail strikes, which have obviously gone ahead. Uh, Today, apparently, there was last-ditch attempts to try and save the situation and stop the strikes from happening. Uh, and they've gone ahead anyway. And I wonder, has anyone in the UK actually been affected by the strikes? Give me a one in the chat if the rail strikes have caused you a problem today, or a two if they haven't. That'll be interesting. We've got 70 people in the chat and 70 likes. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, everybody. That's a good job. So a one in the chat if you've been affected by the strikes, and a two in the chat if you haven't. Robert Manair has. Trevor, Mad Spaniel, haven't. Not in England, blood knows. Julie, no. Kim Allison, no. Tyrone has. Diddy and Ringo, no. So a few of you haven't really been bothered. I mean, I've been worried about traffic all day going around. You know, an increase of traffic on the roads. But I was out at Gatwick early this morning, and I didn't really hear anything at all, really. There was a mix of sympathy and scorn among travellers as central London's busiest train station this morning, the UK's biggest rail strike in a generation, got underway. I mean, this is the fucking media again. I mean, look at this picture here. Look at all these sad faces getting on a London bus. I mean, that could have been anywhere at any time of day in London. That could have been taken 3 weeks ago, for all we know. But they're trying to, you know, stir it up again, I suppose. There was a mix of sympathy and scorn. Early in the day, at first, it almost seemed like a new lockdown had suddenly been introduced. Oh, joy, oh, rapture. The usual bustling concourse, lively bus stops and crammed pavements were instead eerily quiet, except for a handful of tabard-wearing station staff eagerly approaching anyone who would listen to offer them travel advice. But as the sun sleepily rose and peaked above the imposing architecture of Victoria Station in London, commuters, confused tourists, and a few weary early riser travellers started to slowly appear. Today's strike is expected to be the most disruptive of the lot this week. Not only are most railway services affected, but a separate tube strike is also taking place for a further 24 hours. While the gates to the underground were firmly locked, the concourse and its mix of croissant and coffee outlets were open as usual, so you could sit there, wait for a train that would never arrive, and have a cup of coffee. And there was a small number coming in and out. There were a handful of people still milling about, and almost all copies of Metro in the station's bins had already been snapped up by 8 a.m. You've got to be quick, even when there is a strike. But it was the buses outside that came to the rescue for most travellers, with long queues soon forming at the stops by the station's main entrance, as people desperately tried to cram on and get to work. Commuters were full of praise for the steady stream of bus drivers pulling up and ushering everyone aboard with minimal fuss, with most people managing to get on board despite the heavy lines. Among them was secondary school worker Andrea Morales, who was attempting the journey from her home near Pimlico to St John's Wood. Usually I get the tube, takes about 15 minutes, but today I'm catching a bus, and I'll probably be an hour or so to get into work. I'm grateful for the buses. Me, I'd have chucked a sticky personally, and I'm wondering how many else would have done. 15 minutes on the tube, or yes, I don't think I'd want to sit on the bus for an hour in this heat. After the last strike, I'm starting to get used to it now. It does have an impact, but I do have some sympathy with the rail staff. I understand why they are doing this. Do you indeed? This week sees many pupils at secondary schools take their exams. I asked her if she was worried the strike would have an impact on them. She said the strike is causing disruption, not only to members of staff at my school, but the pupils as well. As some of them live outside the borough, but we are making arrangements to cope with it. Also waiting for a bus was hotel front of house staffer Amir Eknali, if I said that correctly, who was in a less magnanimous mood. He told me he had struggled in from his home in Wembley, northwest London, and was still trying to get to his workplace nearby St James's Park. I don't support the strikers at all. It's been happening for many years and the government does nothing. Probably suits them, all the division, I suppose. Something should be done to stop it. The government should not allow these people to strike. There are plenty of other people who would work in their place. I'm very frustrated. Normally it takes about 30 minutes maximum to get to work. Today it's nearly 3 hours and I've had to get 3 buses. Hell of a time. But it wasn't just commuters, travellers and a clutch of journalists milling about. Sure enough, before long, a group of striking RMT workers showed up, clutching banners and signs. Oh, look, and they were accompanied by a few Labour MPs who knew that they would turn up. Yeah, they positioned themselves a little way back from the station on the other side of the road, opposite one of the busiest bus stops away from commuters. However, I didn't hear anyone give them any grief or abuse. And, you know, this goes on. Stockport MP Nevadu Mishra was more than happy to chat, said they were just there supporting the rail workers. Wandering back to the station, there were some young people sitting on a pavement surrounded by bags and rucksacks, look like camping equipment. And there's various other statements here from the effect it's having on people. I mean, what do you think about this strike? You tell me. Should they, strike? Give me a 1 in the chat if you think they should, or a 2 in the chat if you think get the fuck back to work. And let's see what the opinion is. Yeah, Cairns, London. Don't get me started, Tyrone. It's one thing after another, and the place is turning into an utter shithole. I tell you as well, if I get any job requests to London, I think that I don't want to go anymore. It's making it very, very difficult indeed. Set up now, isn't it? It's a neat trick. Remember when computer memory factories burnt down? I remember that as well. Oh no, we'll have to put the price up. Yes, exactly. A couple of people are like, well, get the fuck back to work. What are you playing at? Yes, it's a pretty divisive attitude. I mean, people are talking about prices going up. I mean, you look at the fuel, you may as well call it £2 a litre everywhere now. It's daft. It's very interesting times we live in. Somebody mentioned Russia.